I only write tracks for Steve Swift reviews. He punched me twice in the face and asked for a duel. The pugilistic prophet with newbies diagnostics, like Scroobius Pip but less toxic. The UK comic shooting stars never lost it. It's 2025 and the internet still dies. Guys are chasing algorithms like a crack pipe high. Everybody
Yes, indeed. This is the Bees of Boxing. I am Chris. He is Steve. As in the Bees of Boxing with Steve Swift. That's him right there. And I mean, without that, it's just the Bees of Boxing, but it's not nearly as cool as the Bees of Boxing with Steve Swift. This is what I'm saying. I mean, listen, he got the song, so you got to give him the show. I think this is how this goes. And you'll be happy to know, ladies and gentlemen, that if you are watching this on YouTube, not only do we thank you for doing so, but you will notice that everything on the top of Steve Swift's head is real, it's natural, and it's not going anywhere. Jarrell Miller, take note. All right? This is maybe what you need. Steve Swift, how the hell are you doing this week, my brother?
Doing very well. I mean, that was an extraordinary moment. A lot of boxing this week and a lot of good boxing this week, but the situation you mentioned has dominated because it's so fucking ridiculous.
I mean, it gives us a new bee, right? A new bee in the Bees of Boxing. This time it happens to be bald. I don't know what did you think when you first saw that? First of all, did anybody not notice that this was not his real hair when he first came out to the ring? What happened to Big Baby Miller?
Well, he told us that he was at his mama's house, and she said there's something, he wanted to do something with his hair. He wasn't massively coherent about it, really. But he said that he used something on his hair that she said was shampoo, and it was actually astringent, and all his hair fell out. Now, I'm not quite sure that's the case. So, if it says Drano, it's probably that. If it says shampoo, it's probably that. So he had a flip-top wig. It looked like his opponent, Kingsley Ibe, had the strongest punch in the world because it knocked his hair clean off.
How old is Jarrell Miller?
Well, he's not a baby. I'll tell you that.
So what I mean, do we know how old Jarrell Miller actually is? I think we need to find this out, because this leads me to my next question. So he is 37. He is 37 years old. Jarrell Miller is 37 years old.
Yes.
So let's say that Jarrell Miller's mom is 57 years old. 20 years. Why does she have hair removal stuff at her house? This is a deeper question, I think, Steve.
But I think what he said was that he put it on his head and all his hair fell out like a weed killer. So I don't know whether his mom is stocking the weed killer with the shampoo. That's not a good thing. Health and safety wise, I have to tell you, that's not ideal.
I mean, and you think about all of the boxing that happened this weekend, and that is the story that is dominating all of it. Because outside of that, I mean, I got a text from a friend of mine right after that match, and it was very simple. Did Jarrell Miller even have a camp?
Yeah, both guys seemed to gas by the second round, or maybe halfway through the first.
He went from being Big Baby to a bald bastard and still won the fight. What the hell happened, Steve?
I mean, Kingsley Ibe, because he had the shaved head, he looked pretty good. Whereas Jarrell Miller had a little bit of hair around the side that was stuck on. Extraordinary. I mean,
doing his best Friar Tuck impersonation out there.
But the thing is, with Jarrell Miller, he actually will lean into this now. This will be a bit that he will do because he uses everything he can to get himself up that ranking. So he will use this. He'll think, oh, couldn't be better.
So then this is my next question. Did he know this, and did he plan this going into this fight, knowing that the sweat and everything would pop this thing off of his head and it would create a viral moment that would put him over and have idiots like you and me talking about it for the next week and a half?
Yes, I do think so. I think he thought, what can I do to make it a bit, it's not as if it's a match that's going to get very many eyes on it, to be honest. So anything he can do, I think he did. And good on him, because, we're talking about it, and the business of boxing needs a constant, you need to keep hitting that. Conor Benn knows that, more of that in a bit, in the wrong way. But you need to keep going. And Jarrell Miller has got a very good game in that way.
Yeah, he does. He does. And especially in this day and age of the heavyweight division, the way that it is and the way that it's mapping out, because let's talk heavyweight division for a second here. It looks like a fight has been announced for Wilder, and it's not Alexander Usyk, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on with this, Steve?
I can't understand it, Tidster. I can't understand it, because he was a competition winner. There was a lot of stuff around, who do you pick? The WBC, just to give the history, the WBC said to Alexander Usyk, have a free pick. Alexander Usyk picked Deontay Wilder. People, including me, and I'm sure you, went, what? So he had to come out, Alexander Usyk, and say, this is why. It's nostalgia. Memories. I remember when he was really part of the heavyweight division. That was a great time and all of that. So he had to talk about it, and then suddenly the match is off. And the match with Chisora is on. Now, I have been podcasting many times about why has Deontay Wilder not said, I'm ever so mad, about this? Why has he just been very calm about it? He came out yesterday, I think, and said that he was asked, he was doorstepped, I think by Fight Hub, and they said, why is that? And he said, oh, well, we were negotiating, but things can take a while. And so, well, actually, what else have you got going on, Deontay? I mean, you'd wait all year for a sodding fight for the belts, wouldn't you? You wouldn't say, well, actually, I'm getting a bit bored. I can't take an extra few weeks. I'll get the Chisora fight. You'd wait for 2 years for that, wouldn't you? It's a massive chance. Now, I mean, this is just my take, but as we know, and you have said as well, it's your take, there are two people who are around. Tyson Fury is one of them, and also Jai Opetaia in Zuffa Boxing, who Usyk's been talking about, is in there too. And it looks to me like Wilder has been moved to one side for something else to happen.
Maybe that is the case. Or what about this? What if Deontay Wilder has decided to take that lower level fight, and now he's looking at Chisora as the lottery winner? Maybe Deontay Wilder wasn't getting what he thought he was going to be able to get in the negotiations with an Usyk fight. Now it kind of puts him more of a closer to the A side on a fight with Chisora. Then you have to ask yourself, what kind of personal issues, what kind of personal life stuff could Deontay Wilder be going through, where he would need to dictate the amount of money that he's making so that a certain amount of it didn't go to somebody else undeserving of that amount. Sometimes that happens in a man's life when he goes through things, and maybe that's the case, because you still got to work, you still got to feed your kids, you still got to do all that. So we don't know what those negotiation things happened. And yeah, if it is going to be a 2 year down the road thing for Usyk, then Deontay Wilder does need to work. He does need to get paid. He does need to do all of those things. And I think that that's still a fight. Him and Chisora is still a fight that some people will watch, I mean, we're going to watch it, of course. It's not nearly as exciting. There's not as much on the bone as there is with Alexander Usyk, but I think that this is a much more winnable fight for Deontay Wilder. So it's smart. right?
Very interesting. The Usyk fight is one and done, isn't it? You're a competition winner. You turned up. He beat you, which I believe Usyk would very easily. It made you look a bit foolish. May have got him out of there very quickly. People will watch the Chisora fight because people love Chisora. Plus, he'll do all of the work in the lead up, so Deontay Wilder doesn't need to do that. You know, he's not a great talker, really, so he doesn't need to do any of that. And yes, it's winnable. So it's more open-ended. You make a very good point. You constantly do this.
Wow.
Oh, boxing god.
Well, you know who needed some boxing god advice this past weekend? The person who told Conor Benn it was okay to have his hair that color. Oh my goodness, doing his best Butch Reed impersonation, and it wasn't working out because he weighs 160 pounds. Listen, I don't know if you saw, tell me what's going on with Conor Benn, first of all, because he's clearly looking like a rock star. He's acting like a rock star. He's got Rolly Romero in a Thai plum clinch like a rock star. What the hell's going on with Conor Benn this past weekend? What do you know?
It's he's made a mistake.
Okay.
I've got a podcast that I did earlier, and I started it with, "It's all your own fault, Conor Benn," because it's confusing, isn't it? Because first of all, and I'm going to have to do a bit of history again. First of all, he was installed as the number one contender for the WBC welterweight title, despite not working in the welterweight division for 3 years. So he's done that. That was there's a real anger about that, not least from me. And he, at the top of that WBC fight, we've got Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios, the champion. I think Garcia will win. Sissoko Sullivan Sissoko, who is the silver champion, so the number one contender, is going, what about me? And
is that a belt or a plate? Is that a belt or a plate?
It's
the silver chair. What do they have at that point?
It's a little statue.
It's a
statue.
It's a figurine. It's a figurine of a champion holding the belt.
It's a champion looking at another champion.
I know.
It's a champion.
We shouldn't discredit these guys' accomplishments at this point, but it's not the accomplishments that we're discrediting, ladies and gentlemen. It's the prize that they're getting means absolutely nothing. It means more to the people that have to collect the money for the prize than the prize itself. So don't, before you send all of your hate mail, or do it, send your hate mail to Steve Swift at idon'tgiveashit.com.
That's actually my email address. So yes. So he came back recently, in the last few days, actually, Conor Benn, and said, "Oh, actually, Ryan Garcia might not win. He's a bit unpredictable, and so I might be looking for Rolly Romero at WBA, isn't it? Rolly Romero in May, and then we'll look at, because of course he's supposed to be fighting Shakun Giasov, who is the number one contender, but because Eddie Hearn apparently there's a report that he's already said, well, why not my boy? Well, you've already got the WBC there. So now he's racking that one up. He's saying, I might do Rolly Romero if Ryan Garcia doesn't win, because clearly the implication is I want a bigger name, and then we'll fight Ryan Garcia down the road. Now, all that is all well and good, and that's, well, not well and good because it's confusing, but he's just added an extra wrinkle because, Eddie Hearn should have said to him, mate, don't start this war of words with Shakur Stevenson. But as I said on my podcast, it's difficult, isn't it? Because Conor Benn's the kind of person to say, don't you think I can beat him then, Eddie? And Eddie will have to say, of course you can, mate. Of course you can. So they've had a bit of a to and fro. Now, Conor Benn was there when Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez fought yesterday, and Shakur Stevenson called him out and called him into the ring. And Conor Benn said, you're only small, you're only small. Clearly, Conor Benn is smaller than him by a couple of inches. I don't know where he gets these ideas from. But Shakur Stevenson said, we can do this fight next. Now, Conor Benn will want that fight, but he doesn't want that fight because he's not ready for that fight.
Well, it won't happen. It won't happen. And because the thing that you didn't see in the ring last night that they're talking about already today, Steve, remember when Conor Benn fought Chris Eubank Jr.? And the biggest fiasco that was surrounding that fight was a certain rehydration clause that they had. Well, fast forward to this morning when cooler heads have prevailed and there has been the same rehydration clause now put onto Conor Benn if this fight were to say happen, not as a this needs to be negotiated. No. Apparently Shakur Stevenson has said, no, that's going to be a requirement. So it's not going to happen. You're not going to get him to come all the way down. You're not going to get Conor Benn to come all the way down to 140 for something like that. He'll go back down to 147 tops, and he'll do that. But this is all a nice little flashy thing to do because he was an available name to do it with, who was there at the time, who also happens to be one of Eddie's guys. Because this is really what it's about, is Eddie's trying to put his guys out there because we have this new animal called Zuffa Boxing. Now, it was a dumb thing for Conor Benn to do, but I'm going to tell you right now that it was an even dumber thing for Shakur Stevenson to all of a sudden the very next day, instead of saying it the day before, the very next day talking about this weight clause stuff and making himself look like a weight bully. And to me, that kind of takes away a lot of what you did this past weekend, becoming champion, putting on a clinic against Teofimo Lopez, who could not get his feet moving out the gate. I mean, and let's face facts, it's really hard, Steve, to get your feet moving when somebody's standing on them the entire time. And that's exactly what Shakur Stevenson did. He went in there, he had fun, he implemented his game plan, he did all of that. There was another champion afterwards that kind of lost a little bit of luster for me, and that was Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford had absolutely no reason whatsoever to be showboating afterwards, kind of rubbing it in the other team's face. That served no purpose. You made yourself look kind of silly. You had other champions happen this weekend, though. You had other champions take place. You had Xander Zayas unified a belt, looked fantastic in his bout there. And you also had Josh Kelly, a guy who may or may not have been gifted a belt this weekend. Steve, what happened with this? Did you see this?
Yeah. Why do you say you think he was gifted a belt? I actually thought that he was not given a hope. And I thought that he frustrated his opponent. I can't remember what he's called. I always get it wrong. I can't remember what he's called, his opponent. I can't pronounce it.
Murtazilov.
Murtazilov, that's right. I can never do it.
Sounds like a cold med.
It does. He's a strong fighter. Yes. And I thought that Josh Kelly, people were saying he ran away. It's Tom and Jerry boxing. It's called defense, actually. And it's one of the reasons why Harold Bomber Graham is not regarded as a fantastic boxer, because people don't like defense. I happen to think it's great. And I happen to think that that Josh Kelly showed how wonderful that was. I really admired his work, but you're going to tell me that you didn't, I think.
No, I'm not, because you fed right into my next question for you. Why is it that these knuckle draggers, these mouth breathers that sit there and watch the show and not our ilk of human, our fine folks that listen to this sophisticated program, why is it that they can sit there and say shit like that about Josh Kelly's defensive boxing, but not Shakur Stevenson's defensive boxing?
Because Shakur Stevenson's already been through this. So he's already had the Turkey Al Shake, Tom and Jerry stuff. I mean, it might not have been a reference to him, but people said it was. And he then fought William Zepeda and stayed in the pocket and fought him and punched him and stayed there and took it and did it. So he's come through that. It's awful that boxers have to do this. Show us something else, Shakur. Keyshawn Davis, his great mate, who might be fighting him very, next, was saying, I really, I love that you beat William Zepeda, but the way you did it, please do not take that kind of beating again. Fair enough, really. Josh Kelly did the same thing. Beautiful stuff. But, Bernard Hopkins never got that. And his defense was superb. And he never got those kind of brickbats, did he?
No, and it allowed him to come back at 172 years old and continue boxing. So
Yeah.
here's my question, because you mentioned the name Keyshawn Davis, and he looked great. He looked great coming back. And a lot of people, there was a lot of questions because there was a lot of personal stuff. We talked about this earlier with Deontay Wilder taking a fight. There was an awful lot of personal life stuff going on with Keyshawn Davis and the dynamic of what it is that their business does as a whole, as a family. Shout out to Mama Davis and her matching iPhone and dress combination, all in gold. You looked fucking great. I loved it. But the fight itself, the way that he took it to Ortiz was spectacular. But then right afterwards, he has one name on his mind, and he calls it out. Plain as day. You could tell he was saying this in the mirror the entire time. Devin Haney. Now, could this have anything to do with the fact that Devin Haney and Bill Haney, the dynamic dummy duo of boxing, were kicked out of the building for the fiascos that took place, even though Devin Haney had nothing to do with it, even though Bill Haney was trying to intervene and break it up, but it had to do with his camp, it had to do with his guys, had to do with, right? Talk to me about what you know about that, Farkas.
Well, the thing is that Keyshawn Davis needed that last night. He needed that. He needed to focus in the ring because he's got a lot going on outside of the ring. As you say, he can't seem to keep it focused on boxing. So, we've had an awful lot. I mean, there is the stuff around about Jacko Stevenson, and there are all that. There is the stuff around, like Terence Crawford, I won't be paying sanctioning fees. There's all that. There's weight stuff. There are Farkases. And, he needed that last night just to remind us that actually he is a fantastic boxer. But that will fade if he doesn't keep it clearly boxing. And I suspect that gentleman won't, because I don't think he can. I think it's difficult for him to just focus on that.
Here's the thing that I'm seeing, and I saw a lot of this from last night's card, and maybe it's just this newer generation of boxer, is this need, it seems like, to self-promote and put yourself over the way that they're doing it comes across as boisterous and disingenuous, because you don't really mean it. There's no way in hell, because given a bigger, better, more heavy person, you would never say this stuff in front of an Alexander Usyk. You're never going, you know what I mean? So I think that a lot of the things that are said because of the opportunity to be able to say them. That said, Keyshawn Davis coming back can be a real problem at that weight class. But I feel like all we saw last night, and I hope that I'm wrong in this assessment, but all we saw last night was a speed bump in that highway that is the crash that Keyshawn Davis could be headed for. And that to me is a shame, where the business of boxing is going to really interfere with his ability to be the boxer in boxing.
Yes, absolutely. To use your motoring metaphor, he needs to pull off at a service station, have some apple pie and some bottomless coffee, and think about where he's going. Just calm for a minute. But I think you're right. People think I need to keep in people's minds all the time. And you can do that because there's lots of people who are doorstepping you so they can get on YouTube saying, what about this? How about this? Someone doorstepped Usyk recently and said, can I have 2 minutes of your time? And Usyk said, I'll be back in the ring in March. He won't. How can he be? But he said it. Right. And so people went, he's going back in the ring in March, folks. So I mean, Usyk does this, but in a very good way. He plays with people. But yeah, Keyshawn Davis and others, like Conor Benn, who cannot cannot stop and think before they do this with their fingers. You know, I mean, they don't just do that. Obviously, I've got a phone with them. There you go.
Yes, everybody has a BlackBerry still, Steve.
Yeah, I loved my BlackBerry. Loved it. But I was an executive, you know, and they can't stop doing that because they think if I throw a hand grenade, if I lob a hand grenade in, then it's going to detonate and everyone's going to be talking about me for a bit. Then it's quiet. I need to do another one, and it's febrile. You're right. They really push it, and that's not good for the business of boxing because it makes people, not us, because we comment on it, but it makes people say, oh, it must have happened. You know, for instance, there's a big story about Daniel Dubois leaving Tony Sims and going back to Mr. Charles. And Tony Sims said, well, sometimes you just don't get on with people, do you? You know, you just don't get on with them professionally. That is all it was. We don't need 5,000 column inches on it.
Well, it's funny that you mention the smaller companies like that because, you know, apparently there's stuff going on with Boxer now too. Right? What do you know there? Because we got to get into it before we go in, because all of this kind of ties in. Is I wonder with these decisions, the underlying dynamic between all of them, and we're going to talk about it because it happens with Boxer as well. The underlying dynamic with all of them seems to be family. And sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes that can be a very bad thing. And I think that we're seeing some bad judgment calls by family, and maybe people need to step away from that family. Now, tell me what's going on with Boxer, Steve.
I'm really, really confused about this. In some ways, I'm not, because let me first say that my view is, and I really like what Ben Shalom is doing, and I don't, and it's a small company, we know that. There are some issues around it, but he gets given those hard questions that people like Eddie Hearn don't get, you know, and he does that he answers them really well under pressure. Now, he's been asked many times, well, this BBC thing, it's not going to go anywhere, is it? And he said, well, we need a pay-per-view platform. Now, he's announced, and there was a show last night, superb main event. I mean, the Lemos and Azim fight was called off, and Francesca Hennessy for Ellie Boutel. I mean, what a fight, and what an atmosphere. Best atmosphere all weekend, I believe. Fantastic. And I know I'm high on Boxer at the moment, the BBC thing, but I loved it. So he's announced a couple of days before that he's signing up with DAZN. Now, I don't know if it's just a distribution deal, but he says it's a worldwide deal. Now, my heart says, great, that'll be your pay-per-view basis, won't it? But he also said DAZN is showing the show on Saturday, which was live on the BBC. So what are the BBC thinking when he's showing it on DAZN? I can't imagine they've said, okay. And why would DAZN want that show? Why would you do that? I mean, I do know that it just parks his tanks on, and they're only small tanks, they're only little tanks, little toy tanks, but it parks them on the lawn of one Edward Hearn Esquire and one Frank Smith Esquire. And I presume they'll be, they might not be, they might be good mates, but I presume they'll be thinking, what is DAZN doing? I thought that was our playground.
I feel like it's going to be a scene where you see, you know, Eddie and the old man grabbing the longest of double barrel shotguns and, you know, hopping off like it's a Guy Ritchie movie. Listen, I don't know exactly what Ben Shalom is thinking on this one, but I do like the fact that he is putting his name and his product out there for everybody to see. He's doing the right things as a promoter for everybody to see right now. And the only people that are getting mad about it are other promoters. So that tells me as well, he's doing the right thing. So Ben, baby, that's a B in boxing as far as I'm concerned. And you keep doing it, baby boy. We got you, boo. listen.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Just a quick one. It's interesting with promoters at the moment because also in DAZN is Queensbury, Frank Warren's company. Now, the Tyson Fury comeback fight with Makhmudov, it's Turkey Al Sheikh money, and it's on Netflix. And Frank Warren has said, and I've seen the video, well, I didn't have any say in where it would go. That raises big questions as to what's happening. So everything's in the mix at the moment, and promoters better work it out because Zuffa is coming.
Well, you don't have, I mean, what you could see is that, like, you probably have somebody like Boxer who's trying to make a new contract. You have somebody like Queensbury who's probably coming up to the end of their contract, and DAZN is just covering their ass because they're still trying to make money back from the shit that they gave Canelo Alvarez 17 years ago. You know what I mean? They're still trying to make money back from the shit that they gave to AJ 18 years ago. Like, remember when they hooked their, truck up to that trailer? How'd that work out? So the fact that DAZN is actually starting to recoup some stuff is good. We thought they were dead in the water. It wasn't that long ago, right? So yes, give us more of this boxing. Give us more of it. Just don't get to the point to where you're putting stuff on top of each other just for the sake of having content. Then you start to get into the point where you're forcing people to choose too much. Just give it to them in a timely fashion. Everybody works nice. Everybody knows who's on Netflix. Everybody knows who's on DAZN. Everybody knows who's on BBC. Everybody knows who's, well, nobody's on HBO anymore. But, I'm sure Oscar De La Hoya is still sitting in the background somewhere in his tighty whities and negligee going, I want to be part of the party too. That's just not going to happen.
Cliche.
Happen. Okay. Cliche. Fishnets. What? What? You like that better?
No, I don't like. I'm just saying words. I don't like any of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just say words here. You listen to them and you visualize with your mind the pictures that we paint. Yeah, figure that out. Steve, listen, it's always a pleasure, always a fantastic time talking boxing with you. We've got some great fights coming up. We've got some good fights that have been announced, which means that we're going to continue to talk about fighting. We're going to talk about boxing, and there's always going to be some bees in boxing. This week it happened to be baldness. Next week it could be, I don't know, who knows, the birthing of a bouncing baby boy in the middle of the ring. Who freaking knows? Boxing is wild right now, ladies and gentlemen, but the fights are good. And a lot of people moving around, a lot of moving parts, a lot of craziness happening. So, enjoy some of it. Enjoy some of it while you can. Steve Swift, I know that you enjoy a whole lot of boxing. You also do a lot of stuff over at World Weary Guy 1, including music, including movies, including, I don't know, do you do cooking stuff yet?
I don't do cooking stuff yet. No, not yet. I could do tips. I have
Chips?
I've watched it, so
like the TV show? The TV show Chips?
I could do that chips.
I always said that there should have been a TV show with Abe Vigoda and Eric Estrada. Yep, could have been a buddy flick called Fish and Chips. Thank you very much. I'll be here for 17 more seconds.
For God's sake. This week I watched a movie, so you don't have to.
Okay.
It was called The Wrecking Crew. It is Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa in a buddy movie. It is what you think it is. Just fine. Just listen to whether I liked it or not, but I think you can guess whether I did or not.
I'm gonna say you gave it a cool 6.
I think it's a case of how low can you go.
Oh, really? All right. Okay. So it's not a matter of it's resetting the bar.
The bar was low already in my expectation, and they managed to limbo under it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a task. So everybody's going to need to go over to World Weary Guy 1 and check that out. Listen, Steve, always a pleasure, my man. Until next week, you know how we do here, right? You do, right? You do, right?
Yes.
Yes, you do, right?
Yes.
To the children, Wu-Tang is for the children. We teach the children.
Doesn't matter. Hits him every time. You know why? But he comes back every week because he remembers to do one thing. What's that one thing that he remembers to do, Steve? Tuck your chin.
Wrestling, rock, pop, books, films, TV, boxing. All of this is covered on Steve Swift's Rambling Reviews. I am he, Steve Swift, a UK guy, What you get is all of that, and a funny voice, and even a funnier face. See? Steve Swift's Rambling Reviews. Come to me. I've got a review. Just for you. Ta-ta.